When I was 18 and my friends found online gambling. Now we have a chance to make money and get paid for watching the games. It was too good to be true. And as it would turn out, it was too good to be true. I was hooked right from the start. I had some early wins. This win felt better than any kind of positive experience I've ever had. It actually physically changes the structure of your brain. I was so obsessed with gambling that it was basically all I knew and all I knew how to talk about. And I took all the money that I had access to, and in one last-ditch effort, I tried to make it all back in one bet, of course losing everything that I had access to. I decided that it was time to make some serious changes. My name is Rob Minnick, and this is my story of gambling addiction. When I was in high school, the thing that I did with my friends was either play or watch sports. It was the center focal point of most of our socialization. And so when I was 18 and my friends were also just about 18, we found daily fantasy sports contests, which was basically online gambling. And we thought, wow, if we're already watching these games, now we have a chance to make money and get paid for watching the games that we were already, that's what we were going to be doing anyway. It was too good to be true. And as it would turn out, it was too good to be true. I started putting money onto these fantasy sports contests, and I was hooked right from the start. The recurring theme over my entire life from that point on was gambling away all of the money that I had access to. The feeling back then, especially as an 18-year-old who was working at an ice cream shop, was, wow, I have this opportunity to make 2 days worth of work in one sitting. It's incredible. At the time, it made me feel like this could become a full-time job. Right at the point where I was starting to experience some early wins, I noticed that I was doing the contests way more often than my friends. I was finding that they would be content with putting their money on the 7 o'clock match, which would end, at 9:30. Then they'd go to sleep. Meanwhile, I would then be betting on the West Coast games, the Lakers, the Warriors out west, playing those contests. And that's a pattern that would really begin to emerge over the next year. As I'd gone away to college, I was making some new friends, but our conversations usually were pretty surface level. And typically we talked about sports. My conversations always steered towards gambling on sports, whereas theirs steered towards statistics. I was so obsessed with gambling that it was basically all I knew and all I knew how to talk about. But I remember the very first time that things really became a problem was right around that time as well. In the United States, we have March Madness, the college basketball tournament. This, in 2018, was the first time that it had ever happened. It's when University of Maryland, Baltimore County beat the #1 seed, Virginia, and I didn't gamble on it. And so in my mind, I was like, oh, well, that obviously was gonna happen. It was the first time in the 100-year history of the tournament that it happened, but whatever. I should have known, it was obvious. And kind of out of frustration, I put whatever balance I had at the time with the bookie onto UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, to win their next game against Kansas State, and Kansas State won. So it put my back up against the wall financially for the first time, and I took all the money that I had access to, and in one last-ditch effort, I tried to make it all back in one bet, and it was a Major League Baseball exhibition game, players that aren't even really on the team trying to make the team. And I had to tell my family for the first time, hey, I messed up. I gambled too much. I viewed it as a bad bet. And when you kind of separate it out in your head like that, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen again. It means that that will never happen again, of course, mom and dad, and you mean it. But it's not, I'm never going to gamble again. It's, oh, I'm never going to lose like that again. And so at this point now, I'm a 19-year-old, and I'm working 2 jobs all summer to pay back my family, who paid off the bookie that I owed money to, and I get another bookie. I had some early wins. This win felt better than any kind of positive experience I've ever had. That was a rush, that was a thrill. It was my version of skydiving. Winning and almost winning, or simply participating, actually create a very similar feeling in the brain of a problem gambler. And by the time that 2020 came around, I'd found myself in debt 3 different times as a result of my gambling addiction, to the point where I had to work 2 jobs to pay it off. So 3 times in 1 year, where I was at financial rock bottom, we can call it. I was at this point in my life where I felt I needed a change, but I still didn't accept the fact that the change needed to come from not gambling. I thought that the change must come from my environment. I felt I had to change my location to feel better. So I did a semester abroad. I chose Australia. Australia has the highest gambling losses per capita in the world by a lot. Gambling is available on every street corner, it's available online, it's in every bar, every pub. I spent pretty much every day gambling all day long in Australia. Again, not considering that that was the problem, but now I'm in a new environment. It's summer there. It's nice beaches, really nice city in Sydney. And so I figured that would cure everything. And then it didn't. They sent us back due to the pandemic coming on. And when I landed back in America, I just turned 21 a couple days prior. And so my birthday gift was endless gambling for a year, locked in our houses because we couldn't leave because of COVID, where I would just play poker. I would sports bet once sports came back on, playing casino games, slot machines, trading stocks and options, cryptocurrency, basically doing everything I can to keep that thrill going. And of course, losing everything that I had access to. One thing that I always told myself was, you'll have big wins that will enable you to do whatever you want, whenever you want. You won't have to work a normal job. You'll be able to travel the world and be a professional gambler full time. And then I had one of those big wins. And I took some of the money and I bought a plane ticket to go to Paris to visit a girl that I was dating at the time. This was now using my big win to do whatever I wanted, travel the world, see the world, whatever. It was what I said I was gambling for. And then within 2 hours of landing, I was in the hotel on the toilet spinning a French slot machine and spending all of the money that I had access to. And I had to call my friend to borrow money to not let the girl know that I had a gambling problem and pay for the rest of the stuff on the trip that I was paying for. And that was the first time sitting there where I said, why are you doing this? When I came back to America, I sought out help for the first time. And that was going to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, that was seeing a therapist, it was having my family have oversight of my finances. But there was one piece that was missing, the links between ADHD and problem gambling. And essentially what gambling serves as for someone who I believe myself has ADHD is a sense of continuous novelty, where every time that you place a bet, you're having a new experience and you're pursuing something different. I decided that it was time to make some serious changes. The first change was that I was going to self-exclude from the casinos. It was basically telling the casinos to ban me from playing there. The next thing that I did was give my family access to my finances. It meant that they would have the logins and I would only carry around a cash stipend for my expenses. So I was working 2 jobs, working 10, 12-hour days at some points. And all of the money was going to this account that I would never even know what the balance was. When you first quit, it's boring as hell. It is not really, there's no way to sugarcoat it, really. And it's because your brain has completely rewired itself to get its pleasure from extreme situations like gambling. So as your brain begins to heal itself, especially during the first 90 days following your last bet, it does take time to feel pleasure because your brain is comparing it to a baseline that cannot be achieved by something else other than maybe another addiction. I'd gone from total uncontrolled freedom, which led to negative consequences, to total restriction. It was night and day. The additional things that I did were going to support group meetings. And then what really, really did it for me was finding novelty and finding new things to do with my time. And that's why I started creating content online to share my story of addiction, to help other people, avoid going down the same path that I did.